Oh, good evening, everybody. I do see the red flashing indicator that says we are live. Welcome in to America Disclosing Uncensored. Tonight with me is Matt. Matt, could you say your last name? I don't want to say it wrong.
That's all right. It's pronounced Emch.
Emch. EMCH. If you want
But
to know who Matt is and about his story, or you would like to get in touch with him for a possible interview yourself, that's what we're going to be going over tonight. His experience, one night, his story. It's a true story. I actually met Matt through Bettina Moss, and I was on a show with her filling in, doing a little bit of this and that. We do that now and then. If friends do that, we back each other up. And I had some quality time with Matt, and I was really impressed on his description um, of what he encountered. And I want for everybody to be able to enjoy that tonight. I do look for certain particulars, and you had them in your dialogue, in your story. So I'm going to start off with a question because I don't really want to do an interview. Your encounter's fantastic, and I want to get to the meat and gravy, and I know everybody else is going to want to hear this too. But before we do that, how long has it been in your life, or when did you first say to yourself, I believe in Dogman? When did that occur? Was it in the moment that it happened, or was it prior to that?
no, it wasn't prior to it. The only thing, anybody out there that knows what dogmen are know that there's another term for them out there in all intents and purposes. They're werewolves, and that's what I was familiar with what those were back then, and for all intents and purposes, they were from the movie world. They were from magazines and books and legend and lore, and
Yeah,
they
stories.
that's
That's
all
the
they were.
storyland of it all, huh?
Right, right, and they didn't exist in the real world. I did, however, believe in Bigfoot, and I was always intrigued with the supernatural and with cryptids of just the few that I knew when I was that age.
Right.
But yeah, I had no inkling that these things existed until that fateful night.
Wow. So, all right, where were you? In Ohio, correct?
Correct, in
All right.
Youngstown, Ohio.
All right, good. So we get a basis of where you work. So sometimes people don't want to say where they were because they're on private property or scenarios like that. So were you just camping? Were you just taking a walk in the woods, hiking? Um, how did it go down?
No, well, we actually were on private property. We were in the old steel mills in downtown Youngstown.
Okay.
My one of my good friends, there were four of us that night, and two of my buddies are no longer here. God rest their soul. My one friend who passed away, he actually lived literally across the street from the old steel mills. So we would go over his place and we would hang out for a little bit, meet there, and then we would head down into the steel mill area. And also, if you're from Pittsburgh, where I'm sure you've heard of the Mahoning River before. The
Yeah.
Mahoning River goes through that area. We would go down the Mahoning River and the bridges, and we would just go and we were young boys, rambunctious, and we went everywhere, and not just Youngstown, just in the surrounding areas in the suburbs and other parts of the city. And we weren't afraid to do anything, and we would go down there. We really enjoyed it. It's a massive area. They've destroyed a lot of it now. There is a working steel mill down in that area now, a very newer, much more advanced steel mill. But it was still, that area was an older one working, but the big bulk of it was all shut down, rusting, like parts of Pittsburgh were for many years. That those parts that closed. There's still a lot of steel mills working in Pittsburgh, thankfully, but not like it was back in the day. And we would go down there and we would just investigate and do what boys do. And we go around the building, we'd break windows and just be boys and check things out. And there was an area down there, by the furnace area, that a building real close to that we frequented a lot. and we kind of made our quote unquote home base. We liked it. We got into it relatively well. What we liked about it as well was it didn't have stairs that you could just walk up into it. The stairs were gone. So you kind of had to jump up on an outside kind of concrete walkway and roll yourself up and get in. And we liked that for security purposes. It wasn't easy for, say, homeless or people down there doing nefarious things that happened quite a bit during those days. And, Youngstown was known for different things in those days, the mob, and also, there was a lot of gang stuff going on then. But what we particularly liked about it that you couldn't get into there was because there were wild dogs that frequented that area, and there'd be packs of them, and they're extremely dangerous. They will kill people. And if you look up online, cities like Detroit and some, other cities like in Missouri and stuff where wild dogs go, and I know in Pennsylvania there are some areas that they frequent, but they were really bad down there, and they actually killed some people a couple times down there. In fact, the summer that this happened with my Dogman experience, there were two homeless people down in that area that were killed. They said by the dogs. Now, I wonder if it wasn't this creature that we saw. So we just didn't want to have to deal with those things. And we liked being able to get up in that building and not have anything run in. And, we also, it was a 4-floor building that if you walked into the first floor, you could look straight up to the fourth floor. The middle of each floor was open, so you could look straight up and see right up to the ceiling. Um, there were these. I always have to tell this story because this is a huge part of it. There were these, and someday I'll find out what they were for. They were the 4 feet high metal kind of U-bent shaped things that they had hundreds of them stored in this building for whatever they were for. I do not know. But what we did, because at each end of the building, all 4 sides, it was an open wall. So we took these things and we lined them up, and then we helped each other stack them as high as we could. We stacked 3 rows high so that we had like a makeshift wall made of these things, because there was and still is, if you Google the Youngstown steel mills, you'll see these buildings in the blast furnace area. Steel mill it goes right past these buildings, literally right in front of them outside. And when these railroad were being used, if the people on the train saw people down there, they would call the police and security, and you would get arrested or get in trouble and removed from the premises. And we didn't want to get in trouble, and we just wanted to keep out of the limelight, so to speak. And we would have big fires in the middle of the floor. And since it was a concrete building and went so high, we would just pile up wood of every type that we would find. We'd find pallets, and we'd have big bonfires inside, and that would keep a lot of the light out at night. And we would just hang out in there. We'd be there late sometimes. And we didn't go down there willy-nilly. We would go down because of the time. It was 89-90 and the gang situation with what was going on in Youngstown. It's not an honor to have this title 4 or 5 different times through the years, but it was what it was. And it was named Murder Town, USA numerous times because numerous years, Youngstown, Ohio was number one. And so we would go down there, we would have guns, and, we'd have a little 22 my one buddy had. Another buddy had this little pathetic 25 caliber that made its way through all of our hands. You'd shoot it a few times, the firing pin would pop out. And then I stole out of my dad's closet, which he never knew, out of this. He didn't wear cowboy boots, but he had a pair of cowboy boots in the back of his closet, and tucked in one of the boots was a 38. And I would take that when we would go down there. We didn't shoot at anything. We didn't shoot at people. We didn't shoot at the dogs. We only brought it in case we would need it. And we had them there that day, and it was a life altering experience. It opened me up to a world that I had no idea there was. And it really changed the way that I looked at everything, and it's been a huge part of who I am today, and what I believe in and what I know.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I mean, seeing is believing. I think that's why I threw that in there. And I apologize for interrupting you, but I also a quick hello out there to a couple people. Linda Roberts came in. Susan Haddix is here. Beth McCord. If you guys can like share, I always ask you. You guys always deliver. Thank you for that. So we're talking a little bit about an experience here, a location down in Ohio in the steel mill. Young men doing investigative work and whatnot. There's stories around the town. It's not all good, not all bad, but every town has a story, and it seems that we all carry that on. They build fires, they're enjoying themselves. That's kind of like where we are. Unless you want to back up after it's over and catch the beginning, hang with us on that. And I'm going to let Matt take back over. Thank you for letting me do that little interruption there.
absolutely, anytime. You want to plug in whenever you want, man. You go right ahead. This is
It's really more about the story. It's fascinating because, I mean, one of the other things. All right, let me say this before we jump right into all that. The dog thing. I mean, as kids, we went down through Carnegie Steel Mills and all these other places too that we had off the Allegheny River. We all, from youngest of ages, probably, I would say probably around 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old, going fishing off the river. We would get into all the things the same way you were doing, but it sounds like you were a little older. We never worried or feared. We always knew there was a possibility. It's somewhere in the back of my mind right now. I'm thinking theoretically, yeah, homeless, hobos, whatever, boxcar riders. Never really ran into them. My life went pretty smooth that way, but yours didn't. And that's, I want to say, the most fascinating part about why you're here. So why don't you continue into this here, and feel free to describe this encounter any way you want to, and take all the time you need.
okay. And so we can get to this night, and we had been down there a few hours. We went down in the late afternoon, and it was dark, and we had built a huge fire that night. We had found a stash of pallets that night, and those things burned like crazy, and they burned for a long time. So we got a good one going. We were, just inside. I don't remember exactly what we were doing, but we were in there hanging out, and all of a sudden we hear this pack of wild dogs, and it grabbed our attention because there was like 6 or 7 of them, and they were loud, and they were coming our way. We weren't scared because we knew they couldn't get in where we were, so we were just like, let's go see what they're doing. And they were on a mission, and they ran right by our building, literally 5 feet from us. They never even gave us the time of day, didn't look at us or anything. They were going somewhere in a hurry. And just outside of the building, like I said, was the railroad tracks. And also, what they used to have out there, they had, if anybody knows, in the steel making process, they used a ingredient called coke, and it's just like, it almost looks like dirt.
Right.
And there were huge piles of this coke outside of these buildings, pile like, God, I remember 10 feet high at least, mounds of them. And there was a huge mound of it that probably went a quarter mile either way from where we were. And they went just past our building, uh, just maybe a few feet from where we were. And then they turned, went up over this mound, and then they go over and they go down over on the other side. And within a couple seconds, we start hearing them, we thought, fighting with each other. Just, you hear dogs attacking, fighting, biting, very loud and apparent that something was going on and that they were fighting. We're like, man, why are they fighting with each other? They were just running together. And then within a few seconds after that, we start to hear something else, but louder and deeper, sounds like another dog, animal, some type of animal, but very, very loud and deep, that they obviously were attacking this thing, and then it started doing the same back. And after we heard the noises of it joining into this fracas, we start hearing immediately yelping and crying of these dogs. And we are just in complete, just we have no idea what's going on. We're just looking at each other with like, what the heck is going on over there? We don't want to get down and look because there's a huge pack of them. And then not long after that, a couple seconds, we start literally seeing a couple dogs thrown over the pile of this coke, but not just like the top of it. I'm talking feet above it, like in the air, launched, and they come over and they hit the
Just how far was it? How far was this taking place from you?
10 feet.
10
10,
feet. Wow. Okay. So they ran past you, like no more than 5 feet from you. They get to a different area. You hear a different sound from a deeper from something that could be a larger dog or an unknown at that point. I'm sure
right.
you're seeing this animals being thrown over 10-foot high piles of coke at the coke works, and they're even elevating feet beyond that, just being tossed like rag
Right.
dolls.
Yeah, and like, I mean, one I remember, I can still see it in my head, was upside down, its butt facing us, coming over, and they hit the ground, and some of them had obvious injuries. One I remember had like a very bad wound. It was like flayed open from its back shoulder to towards the middle of its back. I felt bad actually. Later, I wondered if the dog died because it was a severe injury. It was bleeding all over. It left a trail of blood. It hit the ground. It got up and it limped away. The other one hit the ground. It limped away. A couple more get thrown over. One hit the top of it. All this coke gets shot everywhere. And then the other ones that were part of its crew come running over, and they all head back the way they came, like bats out of hell. We are just in shock, total shock. We have no idea what just happened, what's going on. And then within a couple seconds after just kind of watching them all run, my one friend goes, "Hey, what is that? What is that?" And we all simultaneously look, and at the top of this pile of this material climbs up the most massive to date, the most massive animal any of us had ever seen in our lives. And I'll immediately describe the size and what we talked about at a later time that night of what we could compare it to, of the size of this thing. It was every bit bigger than the biggest Kodiak brown bear you've ever seen on TV. It reminded us of a gigantic polar bear, the size. And why we picked a polar bear was because of the shape of it. If you think of a polar bear, you see a picture of it, and where they differ from, say, a Kodiak brown grizz is like a grizzly bear is more like a walking boulder, you know.
Okay.
Shape is like that. This was very elongated. Its arms were longer. It was more lean. It wasn't like as like fatty as a brown bear is very long and lanky, but very muscular and lean. And that is what crawled up to the top of this thing. And it is watching the dogs running away as well. And I always say this as well. I have to say it. Some people might find it silly. Some people might find it funny. We did not find it of either. What it did next was it lifted its leg and it urinated. And it was disturbing. And I'll say why. It was because when it urinated, the stream hit this pile of that coke, and it hit it with such force. It was like someone turned a hose on, and the stream was as wide as like a hose. And when it hit the coke, pieces of it were launched into the air. So you have tons and tons of this material being thrown up in the air as it's doing its business. And when it finishes, it still stares at them. And I always took that as a mark of, I'm marking my territory.
Right.
I laid into you and let you survive. I don't know again if any of them died at a later moment, but it said what it was saying. Don't come back. I'm marking my territory. That's that. Well, that scared us all horribly. And in fact, my one friend who was towards behind of us a little more scared him so much that he started walking backwards, tripped, and fell into that makeshift wall of those metal things that I was describing earlier. And
Okay.
when it hit it, it made a very loud noise, the sound of metal scraping concrete, which is what happened. And as soon as he did that, all of us were like, oh, because we knew what was going to happen next. And what happened was this thing snapped its head immediately and gave us his attention. He was looking right at us. And the first thing that we noticed immediately was its eyes. Its eyes almost seemed like it had a power source behind them. It was glowing. They were glowing. They were glowing so bright, an orange amber kind of yellowish color. And they were so bright that, like I say, it seemed like there was a power source behind them. It wasn't like eye shine. And we had thought that night when we discussed it, we said, well, maybe the eye, it was from the fire, maybe because it was so high on top of that pile, some of the light from the fire was shining on it. And we said, well, maybe it was from the fire lighting it up. It was eye shine. Looking back on it at later dates, we agreed that it couldn't have been eye shine because it was so bright. Eye shine doesn't happen like that. It was just too bright. And its eyes were so large, you could see the pupils, you could see the varying levels of circles in the eyes. When you look at an eye, you have different layers of circles from the pupil to the other part, and you could actually see it from the distance 10-15 feet that we were from it, and you could see who out of the four of us it was even looking at. So we knew when it shifted its gaze at each one of us, we knew when it was looking at each of us. I knew when he said, oh, hey, I see you. And it scared the hell out of us. And my one buddy who had fell into the wall had had enough of it at that point and started to go back in. And just then it growled at us, and immediately him and my other friend, they made noises, and they said within a couple seconds that they felt sick, that they felt like, my one friend said he felt like he was going to throw up. My other buddy said he felt like he was about to pass out. He said, what's wrong with me? I felt like different from them. What I felt like was my legs all the way down to my ankles were super weak. When it growled, we all felt it in our chest. We discussed it later. We all felt it there first. But with me, I felt it in my quads, down into my calves and into my ankles. They just felt so weak. It was almost like when you're dreaming and something is chasing you and you can't run.
Oh, I
You're
hate that. I
Yeah,
hate that. Yeah, they're. I think in a way that's your worst nightmare.
it was. It was a living nightmare.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
felt I felt like I was going to go down on my knees at one point.
Hmm.
My other buddy didn't mention that. He told us later he felt like I did. And my one buddy was just, he said, I'm going to go out. I'm going to go out. And then what it did next, and I always say the same thing here. I repeat the same description because it's what happened. It's how I felt. What happened was so alien, so world shatteringly just crazy. It's when that paradigm shifted in my life, in our lives. And what happened was it stood up on two legs. It didn't stand up like a dog does when it's trying to get a treat or doing a trick for someone. It's real, it's having trouble staying up, it's shaking, it can't stay up on its legs. On this was a person that was on all fours standing up, and it set in on two legs, and it looked like it was as happy on two as it was on four. And it was so big, so much bigger than it was when it was down. It was, and this is another thing I always say, it looked fake. It looked like it was fake. And that was a moment that I in my head was saying to myself, okay, I'm gonna wake up now. Like any second I'm gonna wake up. This is a dream. I'm not really here. This is a dream.
Right. Like, which one of you guys hit me in the head with the beer bottle?
Yeah. Yeah.
I get what you're saying. That's so. I want to. I just you were describing that when this beast was urinating. Was he on all four, or
Yeah.
was he standing on two at that point, or on four?
No, he was still on four, and he had lifted his left leg, and
Oh, he did. He
he
acted
looked like,
exactly
yeah,
like a dog.
a-
Okay.
yeah, yeah, just
Okay.
like a
Okay.
dog. And he stood up on two legs, and that was officially it. All of us had had enough. My one buddy who was behind us and fell into the wall, he had already ran in, and we heard him go, "Oh my God!" And he started like crying, and he ran in. We all kind of did the shock factor, and then we followed suit, and we ran in. And when you go into this building, the way it was there were stairs that were on the outside of the wall, so of the room. It went along the wall, and they were concrete. And going up from the first floor to the second floor, there was a missing section of them. There was like three or four pieces of stairs missing. The concrete had broken away over the years of them not using the building, and there was just rebar like kind of hanging out at different angles. And we had to jump over that, and if we would have ever missed it and fell, we would have got hurt. And we didn't, and we jumped over them. We had done it numerous times, and we went up to the second floor. And going up from the second to the third, there was a section, real small section, that was missing. Just popped over and ran up to the third. We could have gone up to the fourth, but we, for some reason, and the mindset that we were in, stayed on the third. And in the middle of each room, when like I said, that it was open and you could look up, there was like a half wall of concrete at the middle of the room that surrounded this opening, so no one could fall into that hole. So um we had run up to the stairs and ran to this half wall, and we were looking down from the third at the first, at the opening where we had come in. And we were like, oh crap, is this thing gonna come in? We got to stay quiet, everybody be quiet. And my one buddy who had fallen to the wall, he was starting to lose it, and he was crying and screaming. And what is that? We got to get out of here. And we started shushing him. And you have to be quiet. You're going to draw its attention. If it's not coming in, it's going to hear you and it's going to come in. You need to shut up. And he wasn't shutting up. He was losing it. So I remember that I was kind of behind him. And I'm a big guy now. I'm 6'4", but I was a big kid even at 13, 14. And I had grabbed him so hard. I didn't mean to do it, but I grabbed him around the mouth, and I had grabbed him so hard, and I had lifted him up off the floor, so his feet were dangling. And I was cutting off his air, and his feet were shaking. And finally, like, we put him down, and I was holding it, and he was kind of, like, you saw his eyes starting to roll, so he was going to pass out. We said, "We're going to let you go. Are you going to shut up?" And he nodded. So we let him go slowly. And we're like, "Don't do it. I'm telling you, we will put you out." He said, I'm okay. Just so right at that moment, we hear a really loud, and actually felt it in the floor, a thump, and heard the very, recognizable sound of nails on concrete, and knew immediately. My heart sunk. It's coming in. And as I said before, we had a huge fire going. And so the first thing that we noticed on the far wall was the shadow of this already just fake looking gigantic creature coming in on all fours, and its shadow hit the far wall, and like any shadow, it makes everything look 10 times bigger. Yeah.
Illuminate that size, yeah.
Oh, so it was dominating the wall. Its shadow was on the ceiling as well. And then it enters the room. And when it entered the room, the first thing, it was lit up bright because of the fire. It was black as black, and it was so black that I always say is, if it came into a room that was completely dark, it was so black that you'd be able to see it. It was a different like level of black. It's almost like it was sucking light from the room, from the fire. It was crazy, and it was just super jet black, except for, and I always say, I think it had a light white stripe going down its back, starting at its neck, going all the way down to its tail. It wasn't extremely bright. I don't know if it was from the fire. I do think it had a white stripe because it drew my attention to it, and they had noticed it as well. And you could hear its nails on the concrete. It obviously had huge, huge nails. I never noticed the nails. I did notice its hands and its feet or paws later on. But you heard the nails, and it was looking around. And the thing that we noticed immediately was it had saliva, not dripping, not stringing. I'm telling you, it was pouring out of its mouth, and it was, the sound of it hitting the concrete was like when you hear rain on concrete. It sounded like that. It was very loud. It was disturbing, and there was so much of it. It drew our attention, and you know, the thought that went into my head immediately is, if it's salivating this much, if there's that much coming, the thought process going on in this animal's mind is, I'm about to eat or I'm about to kill. And you think of when you see a good plate in front of you, a good steak or something on the grill, and your mouth starts to water. And that's the thought I got from this, that this thing is is salivating. It's thinking, I'm going to kill these boys. And that's the moment when I first got this thought and this fear that we might die. Like, this thing might kill us. What are we going to do? And my other friend, he starts like looking around, and we're thinking about a way out, which there wasn't, because obviously we couldn't go down the stairs because it was there. Outside of the building, you could get out where there was a fire escape, but you could get up to the top of the building on the fire escape. The fire escape, however, from the second floor down, had rusted away, fell some years before, and was laying on the ground in a crumpled up heap of mass of metal. So there was no way for us to get out. And we could go up to the fourth floor, but the only way out of the fourth floor was onto the roof. So there was a thought of, we're stuck. And this thing is walking around, and you could see all of its muscles. You could see muscles rippling. And what I always remember, like, if you see a big cat, like a panther or a cougar or a tiger, a lion, you notice its back, its shoulder blades, and when it walks, they raise. They go up. The other one comes up. I'm sorry. And I remember them popping up and down as it walked. And it wasn't just the blade, it was the muscle surrounding them was noticeably so thick. I had never seen anything like that before. And it actually had ripples on that. And it starts walking by the fire, and there was I can talk about it later on if you like. There was something that I believe, looking back on over the years, when you think of an experience, a traumatic experience, you see things as the years go by you forgot about, or maybe noticed and then you thought about later. Well, something supernatural had happened when it was walking by the fire. And I'll say real quick, I don't know if 100% if it was, but my thoughts on what this creature is partly supernatural, if not all. And so I do think what I saw was its left leg when it was walking by the fire, its front left leg, when it hit the ground at one point, it almost seemed like it phased out, like it went invisible, almost like predator, like it cloaked for a second. It was only its leg, it wasn't the rest of it.
Like a distorted hologram.
Right. It happened real quick when its paw hit the ground, or its hand, whatever you want to call it. And what happened was when it was real close to the fire. And when it hit the ground, if you ever seen like video of the sun, how it has magnetic, happenings on its surface, and you
Yeah.
see like, the shapes it makes and the cyclones that come off of it. You saw mini ones of it when it hit the ground by the fire pop up. And when its paw or leg kind of cloaked out for a second, you could see through it, and you could see some of the fire, and it just like was for like 2 seconds, and then it went back to normal. And so, like, it just happened real quick. And I thought on that as the years went by. I kind of forgot about it that night for a while. But I really believe that something supernatural was going on there. And then it started sniffing the air, and it only for an instant did it sniff, because as soon as it lifted its nose and sniffed, it stopped and it snapped its head and it looked right up at us. And I felt the blood leave from my face and everything. And it looked up at us and it growled again, and we felt it, but we didn't feel it like we did before. And I truly believe the reason we did, I think there was some infrasound going on there. But I think that half wall of concrete we were standing in front of blocked some of it. So we did feel some of the vibrations. We felt it kind of in our face and at the top of our chest, but that was it. And I think that concrete wall saved us from getting the effects of whatever it was doing to us. Heard all the stories of people believing that Bigfoot uses infrasound. Obviously you have lions and tigers and other
Right.
animals that use it. And when it growled, it reminded me of, if you've ever seen a video of, or in person, I never have, but I saw in video of when a crocodile or alligator, they growl in the water and the water ripples, they make that noise, that
Right.
it it
Right.
it did a growl like that, but very, very long and louder than that. That's real short. This did it. It reminded me of. It was a similarity to that, and that's another, supernatural kind of, infrasound kind of thing. I think that was going on. And when it looked up and it growled at us, it stood up again on two legs. And then again, that it just, the two times that it did that, the shock that hit me was just, it was like somebody punched me in the face. It was just so mind-numbingly insane that I was seeing in front of us the legendary movie book, only in movie book kind of situation. Legend and lore werewolf is literally standing in front of us. It's real. It's not fake. I'm not dreaming. I would have woke up by now. I realize I am really there. This isn't, fake. It's not fake. It's a real creature. It's standing up, and it was so massive. And at a later date, we had gone back there years later, and in each corner of the room, there were these massive foundation pillars of concrete, and they were like square. They were huge, and they went from down below. There was like a lower level that we couldn't get to, and it went up through the floor, and each floor of the building all the way up to the ceiling and to the roof. And they were 4 to 5 feet wide, and the ceilings in each room were probably in between 15 to 20 feet high. And when this thing stood up, it stood up by one of them. You could not see the sides of the pillar from its width of its chest. So its
Wow.
chest was at least 4 feet wide, and the height was at least 9 to 10 feet tall. So that's how we were able to kind of extrapolate the size. We went back when we were older, and it was again just so massive. It was this thing going through your head, like it just can't. This can't be real. This can't be happening. And it looks away at us, and it looks at the stairs, and again I got that blood leaving your body feeling, and that horrible anxiety feeling in your chest. And I knew what it was doing, and it saw the stairs, and it went down on all fours again, and it ran for the stairs, and it started to come up from the first floor to the second floor. And the way that it transitioned from 2 to 4 and back, or 4 to 2 and back down, was very fluid. Like I said before, it looked very comfortable on either 4 or 2 legs. And when it was up again, I'll say this real quick. I didn't describe everything. When it was up on 2 legs, its muscles were just like beyond that of a bodybuilder. I always hear descriptions of people say of Sasquatch, or it was so massive you can't compare this thing to a human being. I heard the best description of either Bigfoot or in my opinion a Dogman, as I saw it, that I've ever heard in my life. And this was just recently. I heard a story of a police officer say he saw a Bigfoot with his wife. They were on four-wheelers, and they were looking for ginseng one time, and they saw one. He saw it, and his wife saw it, and his wife freaked out. She was like, "Oh God, no! Oh God, no!" He was like, "Hey, look, look!" And she wanted to leave, and they left. And he said, "I'm not saying, but it was every bit as big as the size of a piece of plywood." He said it was a piece of plywood. That was its shape. And that's what it was basically like I was looking at. And the width and the size of it. And if anybody knows the size of a piece of plywood, you go to a Home Depot or Lowe's and you get it, they're huge. So
Yeah.
that's thing was, and that's the best description I can think of its size, besides the polar bear description. And it was just monstrous. And what he said as well, you hear about all these disappearances and people in the parks and the missing 411. And he said, I'm not saying, but it's so big, it was so big, it, it would make sense. And it does make sense. And these people are disappearing all the time, and there's nowhere, nothing that anybody finds anything of them. And it makes you wonder. And I do wonder, and I do believe that just like people with Bigfoot, there are bad people out there, and I think there's good and bad ones, and I think some of them eat people, and I think that that's what's occurred. And I think these dog men, more of them than people realize. And I think that there are dog men that get mistaken for Bigfoot sometimes. And I think that they are some of the more frequent animals that are, or cryptids that are predating on human beings and eating them and killing them. And it would be very simple. This was the most incredible predator that was obviously only made for one thing. There's no other reason for this thing's existence than to be the ultimate predator. And when it was standing up, its chest was just, it was very human like. Besides the shape or the size being inhuman, it was shaped like a huge bodybuilder man, and its arms had the shape of they were man-like, but its arms were ridiculously long, and its hands went past its knees. Its knees and legs were shaped like a dog's legs. They were not human-like at all. They had that reverse bend of a dog,
Right.
and from what I could see, it just looked like it had dog's big, huge paw feet. And I just remember it had the most gigantic quadriceps, and you could see, even when you see muscle builders, and you could see the separations of the different muscles and the lines that go through. You could see the lines in its legs, and even the bone going down to its lower part of its foot was so thick and so massive. It was just crazy. And its hands, like I said, I didn't see the claws that were making the noise or anything, but the noise they made were so loud that they had to be huge. And from what I could see of its hands, they really reminded me of a freakishly big raccoon hand. Just fingers were really long, and its thumb were really long and lanky, and reminded me of what raccoons' hands look like. And um, it had these its neck, it's almost like it didn't have much of a neck. It was part of you could see its lats on the sides that just kind of grew into its neck, and its head was sat there. And I always remember this too because it stood out to me. It had these real thick tufts of hair that went out on each side of its neck, and they were like spade shaped. And I always remember that. And when it stood up, I noticed that it just looked like big spades of hair sticking out on each side of its neck. And it had its ears were pointed up on the top of its head, and they would cup, and wherever it would look, they would turn kind of like satellite dishes, and you could tell where it was listening. And the ears went up a decent amount off of the top of his head, kind of like German shepherds or wolf's ears. It had a relatively long snout. It was not bear like. I've heard stories of some dogmen having bear sized, snouts, kind of shorter. This one its face looked like a giant wolf. It just looked like a wolf. And it growled at us when it looked up at us, and it bared its teeth, and its teeth were just you know again, just so big, the fake factor popped in, and you could see the light of the fire glinting off of its teeth, and it had the two huge canines coming down from the top and the two from the bottom. And when it was on all fours and it was drooling, I remember seeing the teeth hanging out from the top and coming up from the bottom. And it growled at us, and it bared its teeth, and let us see its teeth. And then when it went down on all fours again, it reminded me of like a black panther. When you see a panther like jump out of a tree, real, almost beautiful, the way that it moved, and the way that it transitioned. It was almost like it was made of like of liquid when it moved. It was so smooth when it moved, like it was like made of oil or liquid metal. It moved so beautifully, and so quick, and unnaturally as well. It was a sight to see. And it went down on and started to come up, and it met those, before it got to those four stairs missing, it jumped over them like they didn't even exist, like it was an inch wide. And it came up to the next floor, and it looked up at us, and then it started heading to the next flight of stairs. And that's where the real moment of that night, when I started to lose it myself, and I started to cry. I started to cry a little bit, and I started to think about my family. I started to think about, I'm gonna die. My life is over. I'm going to high school next year. I'm gonna die. I went to Youngstown Ursuline, which is a Catholic school in Youngstown that's well known for its football and its athletics as well as academics. And it was a dream of mine to go. My dad had gone there, my mom had gone there, my grandmother, all of my older siblings. It was a great joy and honor that I was going there, and I was looking forward to starting football as a freshman. And that even went through my head. I'm not going to play ball. I'm never going to see my parents or my siblings again. I'm not going to see my dog again. I really, my life really, it's true. Your life quickly flashes before your eyes. And I saw everybody in a second. And then as it started to come up, um, my one buddy who had lost it, he completely just went postal. He lost it. He starts running in circles and screaming, "What are we going to do?" Starts to run out to the fire escape. And my other buddy turned around and started to follow him. I was frozen in place. I couldn't move. I had a thought in my head, like subconsciously, like we have nowhere we can run. It's going to catch us in a heartbeat. And then I started wondering, we're going to watch each one of us be killed, mauled to death. And then it's, who's going to get it first? We're going to all die. We're all going to be murdered. We're going to be eaten. We're never going to be found or seen again. No one's ever going to know what happened to us. My other buddy was behind me and he was frozen too. He started to scream and scream help, and there was nobody around. And just at that moment when it started coming up, because I got to explain this too, when it started heading up from the second or third floor, once it got up to the third floor, it would meet us. So
Right.
I was right there and my other buddy was, and you had to run past the stairs to go out to the fire escape, and that's where the two were headed. But once it got up there, it would be right there, literally 2 feet in front of me. And it just was, I was frozen. And just at that moment, we hear the most wonderful sound to date I've ever heard. And we hear the sound of a train on that railroad track right outside the building, and it's coming and it comes, and as it gets in front of the building, as this thing's running up the stairs, it lays on the horn. And I believe that they saw the light from the fire because we had built such a massive one, and they never did that whenever they drove by this building we were in, even when we'd had fires on other days. But this night they did. And I believe that there was divine intervention that night. I believe that God or relatives and God or guardian angels, somebody was looking out for us. I believe 100% it was divine intervention. And this thing laid on the horn, and it stopped when the creature stopped on the stairs, and it turned around.
Wow, that was interesting.
Sorry, I had an alarm go off on my phone.
That's quite
And
all right. No, it's quite all right. I do want to ask you, okay, divine intervention, and we'll leave off there and come back to it. Um, you described a lot of feelings, a lot of emotions, a lot of fears. Um, from the point in time that you guys ran to the third floor and were overlooking the wall to look down, watching, observing, seeing his shadow, the enormity, the body mass, the structure of transitions, of how fluid he walked, the color of the fur. And I'm just doing this in case some people have just stepped in to give them a little bit of a vibe of what we're talking about. How long was it from that point when you knew he knew you were up there and he started to come? Because that would have been one of the most difficult uh, amounts of time that it probably seemed like forever, but not forever. How long though was that point of time before the train blew its horn?
from the moment that we saw the shadow till it came up, was um, it was probably I would say 2 minutes, 3 minutes,
Okay,
but
okay.
it felt like an hour. It seemed like time stopped. and we were paused, and all that was going on in the world at that moment was that. And I mean, I'm sweating right now from telling this right now. um and it heard that horn, and it stopped on the stairs, and it turned around and it looked outside, and it that horn obviously bugged it. I don't know if it was the horn itself or if it signaled to it that there's humans outside, and its cover was blown, or whatever, and it stopped, it turned around, and it ran back down, and it went out the building, and it ran out, I'm going to tell you, so fast, so ungodly fast, that it was like impossible. It was like in the blink of an eye. It was almost like I said before, when you think of how black it was almost like a shadow person just going whip, and it was gone.
I was
And
thinking that in my head because for anybody, if they've ever witnessed something like what you just said, and that's rather startling to witness something like that, because like for me, in my case, I had a little bit different. It intrigued me. It put fear in me in ways. I still do it, but I always, in the back of my mind, have second thoughts. And it's the worst thing you can do, because if you walk into any place or any situation and there's a sense of fear coming for you, I think that puts you in a more vulnerable spot and position. But I understand what you're saying, because I did experience that. Whoom. And it's like you could see the darkness of the shadow, or in your case, it might have been the fur, that darkness of the fur. But it's a flash. It's gone
yeah,
that fast, and it's like
yeah,
what the, as fast as you can't even get what the out, and it's
no,
already gone.
yeah, it was just, and it was out, and it was like, what the heck was that? How
Right.
could something so big and so massive, first of all, move like that, and then, and for all intents and purposes, it disappeared. It just disappeared, and
So
it
it
was
never went
like
through. It never went through an entrance or exit.
it went the streak of black that it went down the stair. It went out the way it came out, that by that makeshift wall. That was the only way in from how it,
Okay.
and it went that way, and it was gone. And we were all just stunned, and then all of a sudden I started screaming help, and then all four of us, intermittent of each other, help, somebody help us. I mean, top of your lung, save my life, save us, please help us, it's gonna kill. We're thinking that they know what's going on, maybe they saw this thing, and as the train's getting farther and farther away, and you're hearing less click clack click clack click clack, then you're start where it's not stopping, no one heard us, and then all of a sudden it was gone. And then
Wow.
the fear set immediately back in, because I thought, right, it's going to come right back in, it's coming in. And every noise, we had a huge fire going, so every time wood cracked, every time you heard a noise, it sounded like it was announcing this thing's return back into this building. And
Right.
thank God it never came back in. But we didn't know that, and the fear was not gone, and it was the most intense, horrifying nightmare plus fear. I can't even put it in the words. It was just, I felt like I was going to lose consciousness. I was so horrified, and I know they felt the same way. And my one buddy who fell into the wall, and I had to grab his, he checked out. He was gone. He is just screaming and going insane, and running in circles, and he doesn't know where to go. And we shut him up again as much as we could, but he's just sobbing and crying, I want to go home. I want to go home. We have to go. And we're stuck up there. And then right a minute or two after that, we're like looking at each other, just trying to take in what just happened. And again, we keep stopping at every noise. It's looking at the room. It's coming back in. it all of a sudden I just remember we have guns. And so I'm like, oh my God. And I grab and I pull it out, and they see me and the other two that had a couple pull it out. And let me say something right now. I'm very, first of all, even if we would have realized we had them, we were so scared and messed up. I doubt we would have been able to aim them and shoot them. Number two, a 22 and a 25 and a 38 with the size of this creature would have done absolutely zero other than piss it off and make it attack us even worse, and take out more anger and aggression on us and maul us even worse. It would have been a very bad idea to have shot at this thing.
All right.
And I'm glad
I do have a question that I don't want to forget, and it's a matter of time, because I find this very interesting. We know it took a couple minutes from the point of the fact where you saw the shadow, and it was deciding to, make its way up the steps. So we have that part of, your encounter's testimony giving us all that information. From the point in time after the last dog was thrown over the pile and it made its way up to the top, and it was standing there marking its territory or relieving itself for whatever we can only hypothesize a reason for. So that was the most visible part of the sighting that started. How long would you say the sighting and the experience lasted from the point on top of the coke pile and the when it was urinating to the point of the horn blowing and it decided, okay, I got to 86 out of this location, um, for whatever reason? Would it be 5 minutes, 10 minutes
I
for the
think
full
we're about
encounter?
6 minutes, I would say.
Maybe 6 minutes.
Yeah, because
The reason I asked is because encounters only last seconds. You
yeah, this
have
was
one of the
long.
most incredible things that you are describing to us is an intelligence of an encounter with time. And the only other person that's ever been able, and I've talked to many, and that's why I wanted to get you on the show, was Nick Valente, where he saw a. I'll wait till you come back in case your phone went off.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No, not a problem. Not
It's
a
all good.
problem. Not a problem. I know you're working by cell there, I guess, so that's fine. You've expressed in great detail things that so many people go out and hunt for, and that's why I say be careful what you wish for. We
Right.
have something that's uh, coming in and out of the fabric of a dimension that has mass, that has strength, and has an ability. A lot in your description says a lot of different things. So, but it's the 6 minute thing is just mind blowing that
Yeah,
you were
it was
able, and you
long.
may not have had eyes on it during every part of the
No.
encounter, but you were even able to describe the hands being like a raccoon and whatnot. But
Mhm.
again, I want to share with you something I really have, and I try to pick and choose things as well as I can, not for entertainment purpose, but that's not it. Research will get us our answers, and there'll be less questions that need to be asked because there's
Agreed.
resolve. And I hope, like Russell Easterbrooks, who does articles on things like this, and I'm hoping he's in the audience tonight. I was really trying to pay attention to the intensity of the story of your story and the encounter because I thought my mind's just blown here on some of the things you're saying. But Nick watched where a dogman like creature, and based upon look, one would focus Wolfman, Dogman, etc., where he had like a deer on his shoulder. And it was like Nick pulled up to this stop sign and, was watching, but I don't think his encounter was that long. You might have the world's longest encounter. I mean, and I think that that's very important. And I'm not trying to bring a lot of attention to you, but for a lot of the people out there that do shows like we do, your story is very intriguing, to say the least, brother. It really is. I don't know from my side, just listening, watching you say things, sweating while you're talking.
Yeah, I'm still.
becoming emotional right live in the United States and beyond, because you are beyond the United States. And if anybody has questions or wants to do it, let's just look and see if anything major popped up. Squatch Man's in. Russell is in. Abe's in. Abe, this might be somebody you would want to talk to in the future. Friend him, please. He's on Facebook. Look up Matt. So there's many good people out there that have very good stories. Yours is a little bit different in a big way. It's not a little story. It's a story of a big matter, of big points, key points, things that people look for answers to. I don't know what I can ask. I mean, I truly like to debate things and go over and conversate them. But you've been very thorough, and I want to
I would
thank
like
you
to.
for that.
I
No,
would
I
like.
do. I truly want to thank you for that. I don't know what it would be like to be in a position that you guys were in. You had one more flight that you could have took up. You're stuck in this position. I can understand that fear of lock because, as I said, I in my life had actually went through a very similar event of something different. But the one thing that I had different, but I think this is why I reach into deep diving some of these circumstances. When your body becomes in fear, it almost can become like a vibrational. Oh wow, it's hard to explain. But for me, where you were like stuck, you became stuck. I don't remember if I was actually stuck, but when I do remember for me, it was more like my body was sending off a frequency or some type of vibration anomaly where I felt electrical everywhere.
I agree. Yeah, your body almost. It's like a real, not
It's a
super
charge.
vibration.
Yeah, it's
And,
like a charge. Like
yeah.
not like you put your fingers into a socket.
No.
It's if you have carpal tunnel, imagine if you tap on that wrist and you get vibrations going into your fingers. I've had my hands done 3 and 2. So I know what that's like. I can do it now. It's never been cured. It always grows. Whatever happens, it always gets remanipulated and pressure on the nerve comes back. Imagine that going through your whole being. And you touch on elements that I know in my life are factual, 100%. But again, the thing of the power, just at urinating, blowing rocks off the coat pal, it's like a pressure washer. You're describing a pressure washer.
Yeah.
What bullet could damage an animal, a beast, a wolf man, a dog man, of that mass of magnitude, and you think you could walk away from it? I think the best ending you had was the ending that you did receive. Was it from a source of a godly experience, or uh, the light of the angels that
Yeah.
we know there's
Or luck
dimensional
of luck.
existences from? Yeah, it's mind blowing. But in this case, um, just nuts. I do want to ask. Uh, you said you lost two of your friends
Yeah.
already. Do you think any part of these eyes, this infrasound, anything played a part to it? Because I've heard sometimes in the past, talking to people, collecting data, to where sometimes we hear about this happening. People that are involved in these scenarios seem to sometimes meet their demise of natural causes of a different form, where they say the good dies young. But
Yeah.
why?
No.
Do you
No.
think that there was any ties? And was there any characteristics of sickness that developed within these young men from that point to where you knew about it?
Man, no. Unfortunately, they died older, and
Okay.
I'm not gonna say how they died. Now, the way that they died, maybe some of the deep set PTSD from it had effect on the way that they chose to live certain parts of their life, but the way that their lives ended was it was tragic, and it wasn't really, but who knows, maybe the subconscious part of it caused them to live their life a certain way that brought about their death. I
Exactly.
can't answer that.
Exactly. Whether and here I'm being hypothetical here, whether it was drugs or alcohol or some other type of substance abuse or or just the fact that they were lost in their own mindset.
Yeah.
PTSD is something out there that does come up, that's talked about. And I think we should look into some of these parts too, and follow some of these facts. I'm just saying, I think there is a slight correlation because I think what sticks in the mindset sticks with you for life.
Well,
And some
yeah,
people relive it and relive it.
I have PTSD from it. I still to date still have nightmares occasionally where it's coming and it starts to attack me and it's caught me. So I would to if you're okay with it, finish real quick with what the story for you is
Sure.
that. What happened? I'll do it quick. We were up on the third floor and we're debating about what we should do, and probably about 25-30 minutes later we make our way down to the second floor. 15-20 minutes later we make our way down to the first and we start talking. We have to get out of here. I mean, it was already probably about 10-10:30 at night, and it was late and we had to go, and we kept saying, the longer we wait here, the longer we're waiting to have this thing decide to come back in, and we've got to get out of here. And so we make the decision, we're gonna make a run for it. And my one friend who had checked out starts just losing it, saying, no, where we can't go, we're gonna, it's gonna get us, it's gonna kill us, we have to stay, we can't go.
Mm.
Finally I grabbed him, and I apologize if I offend anybody, but I grabbed him and I said, shut the fuck up. You've got to realize we have to leave. It's going to come and get us. So you need to realize something here. You're going to either come with us or you're going to stay by yourself, and it's going to come in here and it will kill you, but you will be by yourself. So you either get yourself together, come with us, leave now, or you will stay. And we started to walk out, and we were that was it, we're gone. And he's screaming, don't leave me, please, please don't leave me.
But he
Come
was in fear.
down.
But he was in a state of fear where he
He
didn't even want
lost.
to try to exit and
No,
run for his life.
no, he was
Yeah.
gone. And he finally agreed. He said, oh, please, please don't leave me. We walked back in, and he grabbed the back of my shirt and the back of my best friend's shirt, and he held on to it. I mean, he was like pulling the shirt, choking us. And we go out, and it was a horrifying half an hour, because it took a half an hour to get from my friend's house to the steel mills and back. And when you jump up into the building, there was underneath, it would go way back. So we had this fear of is this thing underneath and behind waiting for us to drop down. So everything we did, we were just horrified. It's going to get us. It's going to get us. And we had these old, I don't know if anybody remembers the old store Farmore. We had the Farmore special flashlights that had like 2 or 3 D batteries. They barely lit, but we all had a flashlight. We turned them on. We had the guns out, and we get down. We start making our way, and every time we kick a rock or anything, you think it's signaling. So we're constantly looking behind us. Every noise, thinking it's behind us, which was a absolute nightmare in itself. Getting back to my friend's house, and the stress and anxiety of it was palpable. And I'll always remember, like right now, I feel it in my chest. I'm starting to sweat again. And once we got back to the like last level of getting out of there, was these dirt roads that whatever cars they used or trucks made. And then we get to where we would come in, and when we come in was just a huge almost mountainous hill of like gravel and dirt. And so when we go down, it was easy. You kind of, turn your feet to the side and just get down. But going up, you had to go on all fours. And as you climb up, there was no way around it. It always happened, and we'd laugh at each other when it happened. Except this night, each one of us would start to slide back down, and you'd slide all the way back down, and you have to get yourself better footing and handholds and get back up. And as each one of us are sliding back down, the horrifying thought of it's behind, I even screamed, "Is it behind me? Is it behind me?" as I'm sliding down. And I just kept thinking like that thought of like, I remember in my old house I lived on the north side of Youngstown in the basement, we had those kind of stairs that like you could stick your hand. There was like a space behind it under the stairs. And, you always run up when you're a kid, you think a monster's going to grab you. And that
Yeah,
was that feeling you had that
I get it.
down. and
Yeah.
and it was horrible, and each one of us a couple times slid down, and we just start screaming, "Is it there? Is it there?" And we finally made it up, and once a couple of us got up, we helped the others. We'd reach and grab, and we got up, and as we were doing, we heard that pack of dogs, and we heard them in the distance. We never saw them, but we thought this was signaling this thing coming again. And we just got up to the top of this hill, and we jetted, and we had to run out of this parking lot, this huge parking lot, across the highway, which is Youngstown Warren Road. It's called Route 422. We had to run across the highway and jump over a fence and run across the street into my friend's house. And his family wasn't there that night, so we had run, and we got up on his porch, and I always remember he had a hose out, and I got the hose and I turned it on and just drank and poured it all over me. And we all did the same thing. And we were sitting on the porch and some on the steps, and we didn't speak for like an hour. We just sat there, and we were just staring over at the steel mills, and I just kept looking and seeing if I could see. And we're just staring more or less into space, and no one talked. And my one buddy who had lost it didn't talk for like 2 3 days. He like had to go see a psychiatrist. um I actually at a later date went in and saw my priest from my church. St. Mary's Church was where I went to church. I'm half Lebanese. It's a Maronite Catholic church. And I went and I talked to my priest about it. And I told him what happened. And he said, Matthew, he said, there are things in this world that people don't realize are real. And he said, he even said to me, we're taught in the church that there are supernatural things in a supernatural world that people don't understand, and a lot can't handle, that there are things out there that are real. And he said that we're taught about some of these things, and he brought up, like when people are possessed and how the real that is. And I spoke to him a lot, like for 2.5 hours about it. And I felt a strong rapport with him for years after that, because I was able to talk to him about it. And we talked about to each other, when we had to talk to our families, we are going to tell our families. And we all agreed with each other that when we discussed it with each of our parents, our groups of parents, that we would, all four of us would be there for each other, because if we were by ourselves, we had no chance of anybody believing us. So we did that. And
Right.
all of two of my other buddies, their parents just, you guys are crazy. You saw a dog or what? You don't know what you guys are nuts. You're full of crap. And my parents, my mom, she just was like, "Oh, Matt, come on, honey. You didn't." My dad thought we saw a bear. Said, "Dad, we did not see a bear. It was not a bear." He said, "Matt, you guys saw an extremely large black bear," because we have black bear in Ohio. In fact, we just had a black bear. There's a video on YouTube of a black bear in Warren, Ohio, which is right next to Youngstown, Ohio, just within the last week. So they're around, and I'd
Yeah.
seen one before, but this wasn't a bear. And so years later, he did believe me when I confided in him again when I was a grown man, and I talked to him and sat down about it. He had asked me, "Hey, remember that, you know? And I said, yeah, Dad. I said, I haven't talked to you about it because you didn't believe me. I said, I'm going to tell you. And I told him the whole story, and again, in very, very fine detail like this. And I looked him in the eyes and I said, Dad, look at me. I said, I'm telling you as your son and as a grown man, this happened. And
Right.
he believed me finally, and that was, he's not here anymore, and neither is my mom, and that was really big for me to have my dad finally, you know, look at me in the eyes and tell me he believed me. And the only parent out of all four of us who believed us was, and I'm not going to say what my best friend's dad did, but some people I'm sure could figure it out. He worked for the city. He's basically in charge of everything. And when we told him what happened, he immediately got just furious and was, first of all, just so angry we were down there. Secondly, first he went over how we could get hurt, you could get killed, you guys are going in buildings that are dilapidated, concrete from ceiling falls daily, and you could fall through stairs, and you never, he said, those metal buildings, huge pieces of metal fall off them all the time. We hear them. He said, sounds like bombs going off that could fall on top of it. Then he went into that thing, and he gave us the idea by the way that he reacted when we told him what we had a run-in with, that he knew what we were talking about and that he believed us, and he got angry about it. And he didn't really discuss much with the four of us. But at a later date, later that week, my best friend talked to him about it, and he asked him about it. And my best friend told me that basically what he told him, without saying everything in words, just in as little as he said, that he was aware of this thing, that police officers in the area had seen it before, that they were aware of it. He made the comment about the homeless men that were supposedly killed by the packs of dogs. He said, there's a couple of homeless guys that were killed down there by an animal. That's the way he put it. And
Right.
he said, I don't ever want to hear that you're down there again, because I will myself make sure you guys get put in jail and you won't ever play ball, and they blah, 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 blah. So he gave him the sense and gave us the sense that he knew exactly what this thing was, and that he was aware of it. And that police had run-ins with this thing, or at the very least seen it real quick and had calls about it, and people that worked down in that area had seen it as well and made calls. And the majority of the time it was laughed off by the people answering 9 calls and stuff. So that is our nightmare in hell that night, and that's what happened. And it really happened, and I don't care what anybody says. It happened. It was real. It happened. Like, I'm looking at you on this camera. That thing was there. It was right in front of us. There were four of us. We all saw the same thing. The story never changed for years, and we talked about it constantly. We did not tell all our friends in school. We were told not to talk about it by my one buddy's dad. And he made a point. So he said, everybody will make fun of you. You'll never live it down. No one will believe you. Don't talk about it. And we didn't. We didn't. We kept it between us. And I just, there's no reason anymore. I don't care about talking about it. When I told this story a couple times, I only used my first name, but I don't care anymore, because it really happened, and these things really exist. It's not fake. This isn't fantasy, people. This isn't people making this up for entertainment purposes. This is real. These things are out there. I believe 100% in Bigfoot and these dogmen, and there are other types of cryptids out there, and they really exist. You have too many people, good people, ex-police officers, people that hold high, that have no reason to lie. They get nothing from telling their stories. I'm not. There's no reason to lie. It happened. This is
Oh,
real.
wait a minute. You're going to get sent a cookie.
I'll take that.
No, I mean, I get where you're at. And I think the one person, um, maybe the most important person, gave you validation by telling you, don't talk about it, don't go back. And the problem with that is we came from a different era also, and a different opinion of mind thought. And now we're in a different era with a different and a new mindset. We need to talk about things. I want people to come forth. I'm happy that you did it. Your story is impressively beautiful, sad, scary, but it's filled with facts. I mean, your details are like bam, right there on many things that we would think about. The encounter lasting 6 minutes, up to. I don't want to overstep my boundaries and misquote you because I believe people's facts and truth are to be delivered that way. Again, I want to thank you for coming on and sharing this, and also
Proud.
sharing some of the deeper things, like how you guys had to deal with this from a medical standpoint, a religious valued standpoint, more validation of facts coming from someone who you trusted and you became close with, that told you and shared with you things that they were taught through religious beliefs, that there are other things that we deal with in this world. Then we also have different circumstances of high technologies, and many stories like where you brought up at the beginning of the show. You said a few things, all in good, positive ways. But we missing 411, abduction 911 that I do. Yeah, there's an indifference there. I get into what's called below level 7, and that is biogenetics and cryogenics and things that our own government does on lower levels. And yes, there are many things, many people missing, and I think it's bigger than human trafficking. I believe
Oh,
it's bigger from a government standpoint, because cattle mutilation, there's a lot of ties, and when you get into the cattle mutilation, I think they do more than what's necessary to throw us off as people investigating the facts. We look at the whole system of what's been gutted, but the fact is they may do that on purpose. They don't even need all of it. They just want to throw off the track. And ET wouldn't do it, but a government would. So it makes you wonder when we look at these scenarios and the possibilities, and we can go into historical backgrounds on things and what the United States has done. And one of the main things is we didn't go for weapons of mass destruction into a war. That was an elevated shit show to make us believe patriotic patriots needed to be reborn and to grow a different structure, because we just went through an adversity of damage in the towers and so forth. But when you really look and you talk to some of the military guys, they went there for DNA samples, they went there for technologies, and they got their hands into things that are sometimes indescribable. So we're all over the place here. Could this have been a possible release? Is it a natural entity of a cryptid that has mysteriously evaded everybody except for people in Ohio and this steel mill? It just makes you wonder, because it's not a secretive system of monkey see, monkey do, hide and seek, but they are there. And there are things there. And I hope more people, because of what you just talked about through the night, brings more people to the front of the line and saying, well, hey, it's time I talk about this, because they were dumbed down by their own families. They were dumbed down by a system. They were dumbed down by police. Because, this is how government works against us. This is also, in some cases, the worst case scenario, how our own families dumb us down. They want to make, and it's not that they're doing anything intentionally. They're looking out for us. And we need to let people know that there's a welcome format. And I'm sure if somebody had a problem or coming out and they wanted to talk to you about it because you did, you would probably say, hey, let me make time to do that for you. Like the same as you made time for me.
For sure.
And that's one thing that we all need to think about in the world of cryptid. Cryptozoology is so big, and we're finding out that there's so many living creatures on this earth that we didn't know about. More things die in a day than we even realize ever lived and populated the earth.
Yes.
and we need to keep moving forward in this. I want to, thank you again and ask you if there's anything else that you feel you want to put out for a second time, because I only have one question that I am just stuck on, and not in a bad way, but the intensity of the eyes, as if they were beams or used like with a battery charger behind them. And
Yeah.
I'm still a little blown away about the stepping past the fire, and suddenly you see a glitch in the matrix of
Yeah.
now you see me, now you don't, kind of a mishap, or a supernatural event of power, like a skinwalker, other things that people talk about that can manipulate and fabricate the atmosphere into another dimension through portals that we cannot see, through electromagnetisms. Yeah, I know I don't say a lot. I study a
No,
lot.
I was
I'm
just
not an
gonna
expert
say
at
that.
anything, but I love research.
Oh well, you gave me a beautiful handoff, and what I was just about to say was, you think of and you hear the stories, and I have researched things since this I was a kid. I A day does not go by that I am not just completely in this world. It's a part of my life. And one of the things that I have really found interesting and that I have researched a lot is Skinwalker Ranch and the things that go on there. And that is somewhere, hey, Josh, my man,
Yeah,
Josh,
Josh is a great fella. He really is.
Paranormal Roundtable.
Yeah, one day I'm gonna sit down with him, and we're gonna have a glass of whiskey and smoke a cigar and just shoot the shit.
He is a great dude. I would love to sit down with him in person as well. He's having a conference in August in Texas that people should get. I'm going to try and go to that sucker. He is, yeah, having a great conference there. Everyone needs to go there. But the thing about Skinwalker Ranch that I found interesting is that they said they have seen dogmen there, and that they've seen portals open, and that different kinds of creatures like shadow creatures and dogmen come out of these portals. And like the guy was talking about it on Skinwalker Ranch, the show on Discovery or whatever it's on. And he was talking about him and another guy, because they don't go around there by themselves anymore. He had infrared goggles on, and he saw two red eyes that popped up in the goggles, and it looked at them and gave them a dirty look and turned around and walked away. They looked, that the thing wasn't there, but with the goggles on they could see it. And touching on infrared real quick, I'm only going to say this real quick. I believe the cryptids like Bigfoot and Dogman can see infrared light. That's why these cameras they have on hanging on trees don't ever get pictures. They can see them. They can sense them. We need to use a different spectrum. We need to do testing with different spectrums of light that these things can't see. They
I
can see
agree.
infrared, but I believe that this thing is supernatural. I think it did cloak out for a second, just a piece of it, but it had no reason to cloak out on us all the way, because he had shown himself. And oh, by the way, obviously it was a male, because when it lifted its leg and did its job, there was a very large member there.
All right. My finger went up. No, okay. I have a female dog. Not me personally. Um, my daughter, and I've had a little Chihuahua. Did the same thing. It lived with me, and it was my daughter's dog. But now this one doesn't. Nevertheless, both females, both lift legs. Not all the time, but it does happen on occasion. It's a rarity, maybe,
Yeah,
but
my female does too once in a while.
yeah. So I mean, we couldn't really justify it with this, with the exception of you describing the chest, the muscularity. So you
Was
weren't
male.
right. You're for sure on that part. So
Yeah.
that's great. That
Yeah, and
gives a little
it
bit
had a
more of
large, had a
identity.
large, it had genitalia like a male, like a male dog. So
Right.
it hung at some spots with two testicles. It had a very large setup.
Something. A
Yeah.
large
So
setup. There you go. Okay. I wonder, if the train's horn, kind of feared him off. If this was an area and everybody kind of sorta through what you found out, also they knew something was different down there. They were blaming it on dogs, but maybe it was this creature that no one was allowed to talk about, or some scenario like that. It just makes me wonder. Maybe this creature, this Dogman, Wolfman, because you thought it was more like a Wolfman, and we'll go with that. Um, Maybe perhaps it challenged the train once upon a time and saw that the train was just something that it didn't stand a chance next to, due to its weight, its power.
Yeah.
That would, and that could be the reason that the exit occurred, possibly. Because we don't know. We don't know every
No.
experience. Not every report is ever released to us. The same as on many other things. We find out things later through research and through warriors out there who really want to get to the bottom of the story, the real story. And again, I want to thank you for yours, and Josh for coming in. Also, I want to say a special hello to Ernie Devois, great man, someone that you should friend. A very intriguing story where he encountered a Bigfoot.
Bring them on, man. Bring them on. I will friend anybody. I'll talk to anybody.
Yeah, he has a phenomenal story where he saw the color of the eyes being blue, the prints of the hand gestures. That's something else. What in the movements of this creature, because Ernie did bring up that he felt in a way that there was being sign language being used. Were there any expressions of movements outside of the growl towards you?
Yeah, I'd heard real quick. I'd heard the story about years ago. Oh, I please everybody forgive me. She is actually somebody. She passed away. The reporter who had brought up Dogman. Um, Josh Turner said that she was one of his main people that got him into it. I can't think of her name right now. She passed away, but she had written news stories about them back in the day. She had talked about a gentleman who worked at a cemetery and saw a dogman. It was either cemetery was near a Indian mound, and when he saw it the second time, it looked at him and it spoke and it said Gadara, which has meaning. If anybody watching knows what Gadara is, it has meaning going back. And if anybody looks in the biblical history, there are biblical stories of dog-headed men on islands that supposedly Christopher Columbus had seen, and some people in the biblical times have witnessed dogmen. And I
Lee
think,
Farrington. He
yes,
he made mention of it, even when he came here. It's amazing, but you're absolutely right. When you
but
deep
no, I'm
dive,
sorry, Mike. It did not give any sense of language or sign language. Everything that we got from it was predatory. I'm about to
mm,
kill you. I'm coming to eat you. And I believe it was set to kill us. I don't think it was. I've heard stories that these things have some kind of a sick, kind of fun. It gets off scaring people. And that may be for some of them. This was not trying to scare us. He was coming for us, and the train interrupted him.
right? I did have a question. Someone was being specific. Could you round off your ages during that time as close as you can?
Yeah, I was like 13, 14 years old, right in that age.
Yeah, I thought you mentioned that, so maybe you actually covered that after, but it was a question that was in.
Yeah.
Um,
So
I think
old enough to
I think
realize.
everybody well enjoyed everything that you had to say. Ricky James says, "Hey there, probably a bunch of dead Indians, and they're probably a bad spirit." Uh, and you know what? We don't. Russell puts it the best way out there, Easterbrooks. There will always be more questions than answers. All we can do is do the research and stay with it, and talk to people and accept their stories, the best you can. don't be manipulated. There's some manipulations that go on out there. I think that's going to happen. It's sad, but it's going to happen. Nevertheless, there's good people, and we need to also let everybody know that there are good conscience people that are willing to, talk to them and uh, help them get through an event if it helps them to discuss it. I mean, please, if somebody wants to contact me and you have a story, you have an encounter, uh, hit me up on America in Crisis. Hit me up on America Disclosing Uncensored, the Dark Radio Network project. I'll be more than happy to do that. If you want to bring a guest with you for comfort, hey, just reach out. We'll get you on. It doesn't matter if it's ufology. It doesn't. Cryptid, I talk about everything, and I'm the kind of show that likes to do that. It's just, um, all topics are welcome. I'll just say it like that. All right, I was trying to put up some just the small commentaries that were going on in the background, and you know what? This is a good thing when I see people still here at the end of the show between the different diversities that I'm using, how it's feeding on. And on many platforms, I'm working between here off to the right side, left to you, it might be the left, but to my right side, everybody's still here. There's
Awesome.
been some that came and some that gone, but I got to tell you, when you don't get a lot of comments, it's because you had on a good, credible guest with a true story. And I want to thank you for that, brother. I really do.
Thanks.
Maybe one day we can put a platform together and compare some notes between Bigfoot, Dogman, and the experiences. And I can also help you get attachments to some other people that I think have really relevant, true stories. Because that's why we do this, and that's why we're involved. And I'm really sorry that you have been suffering through a lot of your life with this. So I want to say that. And as a support person, I got nothing but compassion and love for you and your story. And I hope
Thanks.
everybody else out there does in America, wherever this gets shared to and viewed to. And if you can help and share, keep the algorithms up. You know what to do. Hit the thumbs, the hearts, the things that make it work. And I hope you get invited on some shows. There are places I can't reach that other people have other people that they reach. And I think everybody needs to know who you are and all about the encounter.
Well, I want to say two more things real quick. If everybody, they obviously pay attention these days to the paranormal and to things going on with UAVs or UFOs, and the more and more things that are happening these days. There's so many more sightings of cryptids and aliens, and there's so many more credible people coming out, government people that held very high positions, like the ex Canadian Minister of Defense and some other ones who have come out and said it's very real and it's happening and they're here, and this stuff could be all intertwined or maybe not, but it's happening, and there's so much happening, and I think we're all witnessing the beginning of us finding out a lot more than any human being has ever seen in history. And I am going to be starting my own channel because I'm just too wrapped up in this. So when I do, I hope I can bring everybody over to me too.
Oh, by all means, it's an open market. Always speak truth and give the best facts that you can. That's if you do that, I think you'll have a lot of success. There's always going to be judgment, but you know what? You'll have that. You got to look over it, through it, and continue taking your steps forward. I do want to bring something up that you only within your last couple comments that you were talking about the UAPs and all these different things. We have some confirmation now that has come out recently. We also had Stephen Greer come out and did a lot of talking. We have whistleblowers, over 750 of high up people. You're right. But Lou Alexandro actually was in the Pentagon. And he was approached by somebody who he was not privy or felt comfortable to give the name up. And this official said to Lou, these are Lou's words, sort of. I don't want to misquote him, but I think you'll get the gist of why I'm saying this. That he asked Lou, "Why are you continuing to do this?" And Lou said, "I guess, well, it's what we're trying to find out answers to." And he asked them, "Did you read the Bible?" And Lou said, "Well, I guess yes and no, kind of, sort of, maybe, that kind of thing." He says, "Well, if you read it, you'll learn." And basically, at the end of the discussion, Lou was like, "Well, what do you know that you're not telling me?" And the fact that came through Lou from this commanding, this person of above him, said, "We know what they are." And he says, "Well, if you know what they are, share with me." He said they are demonic entities.
Mm, interesting.
And he was being told this from somebody much higher than he was, even though he had a very fruitful life, a position. He came across a lot of different facts of technology, still things he signed a piece of paper he can't talk about. Maybe August 7th, there'll be a little more information out there from somebody you all know too, who has been quite silent due to some of these things that people that the government makes you sign, so to speak. But yeah, so here's somebody high up. Now he's giving full-fledged testimony to the public to know that somebody else has said this to him. So what is it? I mean, when we really look into it, and this shouldn't take anything out of the cut of the information. If that's factually true, what are we dealing with then? Is everything a demonic entity, a spiritual entity? I guess there's facts and possibilities of truth there, because what do we know as humans that have the capabilities to do any kind of eye shine with their eyes that are like beams? I mean, when they want them to beam, they can beam. When they don't want them to beam, they look normal. I mean, what does that? We know a lightning bug lights up. We know that there are things out there in the ocean that
Yeah.
glow and can do there. Yes, we know things, but the characteristics of the information is just so different. So
And you
go ahead.
mentioned about demons. I'll just mention this real quick. In the Bible, it says in the Bible that God gave the earth to the devil as his. So
Yes.
if these are all demons, then is that true? Does the devil really own the?
Yeah. And that takes me back to the fallen, but before. So you have an upper kind of like delivery of information here. The way I've always looked at it, with the information that I have been able to research, pull in, listen, be objective to other people's books and lectures and so forth. But nobody says this. I do, because I believe it could be possible. It's only a theory. But let's say Satan is the father, meaning the technology.
Hmm,
Then you have
CERN,
the Nephilim, which becomes a generational pass on. Then you have the Raphaelim that again comes. And now we're in a new day and age of AI. It comes in waves and stages, the same as civilizations prior to now. Things buried over. We find them. We dig them up.
Mars.
We dig
Mars
them.
looks like it has things on its surface that look like that there was a civilization there.
Sure, sure. And they'll tell you that's not factually true,
Mhm.
but we know through other intelligence of different types of new products that they have come up with, we know more clearly now than ever that it shows that 100%. And there's also things on the moon. We have
Moon.
information now behind the moon that there are glass dome structures there.
Yeah.
We also have some things of testings to prove how rainbows work, which means there is some type of firmament that goes around us. Now, is it an invisible cloak? I don't know. They were shooting missiles at it up in Antarctic, and they couldn't break through it. So, what was that about? And what were all those experiments about? Not only that, when you get a double rainbow, that means there's a layer of water.
Right.
I don't know if we're capsulated in some of the things that we find out, or a lie. This is why facts and shows are fun. We bring information and we bring people in. We bring book authors in who've done researches on things that we can't, and it makes enjoyable topics. And I love doing it. But again, I think when you peel the layers, some people say it's the Anunnaki. You can go through all this, but if we go by the Bible, it seems like it's been a stepping stone. And who's the leader? It would be a satanic Baphomet, everything that we're looking at now, a transgender type God, which they created into a transgender type God. I don't believe there was any type God like that. For anybody until they created it. Man is the most fascinating creature on earth in my mind. And I think most books on this earth have been compromised from truth and turned into fiction like a joke. And that's shameful. This is suppression in education, it's lies and formats of our lives. And things like this don't belong and no longer need to fit within our protocols of fact. And we need to destroy and bring out a clarity and transparency to show everybody. And that's why I beg people, come on, talk. It doesn't matter the topic, as long as we get somewhere by the end of the show. You know what I mean? And also, I put this up for you. I don't know if you're seeing it through your phone because you might have small print. Ernie would love to speak with you, Matt. So, two guys with great experiences, and I hope that you will be in touch. Or Ernie, if you can, just friend Matt. He'll accept your friend
for sure.
Yeah, he'll accept. Let's see what else we got here. My Wi-Fi has quit. Okay, Joe Fox, you probably wore it out for the day. We're all hey, look, I make so many comments politically and non-politically. I just want to let people know, even if I'm not in the game as a guy behind the glass, it doesn't mean I'm out of the game. Sometimes you need to sit back and take the whole thing in, or just wait for the best stories to come in front of you and then try to produce them out so the rest of the world can see them. And I'm glad I was able to do that for you. Would you like to say anything else to anybody else before we get out of here? Do you have a name for your channel that you're about ready to do, or you want to wait on that?
I have a couple that I'm trying to decide on. It'll have meaning.
Okay.
That's for sure. But I will definitely let you guys know when I'm about to come out. I would appreciate it. When I do, everybody would come on over, and I would love to have you on. Anyone else that, like Josh Turner and Todd and Brian from Cryptid Creatures, and Tina and Wes from Sasquatch Chronicles. Everybody has been so great to me and so welcoming, and it has been very, very freeing and rewarding to be able to get this off of my chest for holding it in for so many years. And it's a community out here that is very tight, I'm learning, and it's very familial, and I have a lot of love for these people out here, and I want to thank you, and this has been a very good experience for me instead of a negative one.
Oh, I would never make anything negative. Sometimes I have to question things a little different. You run into that. I felt so comfortable and intrigued with your story. I want the world to know about it. And I'm sure a lot of people are going to do it. We'll post it up to 30 days on different networking systems and repost on weekends. A lot of people don't always catch it. And a lot of things immediately drop the bottom feed. So we got to bring it back up from the bottom. So I do keep after that, and I'm sure it'll help, and it will come back with a good positive outlook. So
hey,
we're going to. Yeah, go ahead.
My buddy Twan out there who's watching. What's up, my man?
Who's that? Who's watching?
My buddy, his name is Twan. He was watching earlier. I just want to say hi to him.
Oh, okay. Hi, Twan. How are you, brother? I didn't see his name come up on any of the comments. I don't always.
Me, I just saw his name. He reminded me that he was going to be in there watching tonight.
Well, that's sweet. I'm glad he did that for you. Support is everything. And you're right. The community, there's a lot of really good workers out there trying to do the best they can. Sometimes we tramp on each other's feet. We have the same guests. But if you do it, I try to do things in time. Nothing's about having something done tomorrow. Let the bacon and eggs rest a little bit before, so you don't burn your mouth and then bring it back up, and let everybody have their moment. I try to do that. I try to be respectful to the community and all the different channels out there who do such a wonderful job. And really, there's many that do. I'm
And
probably I'm probably the ones on the lower part. But I do have a wide audience because I speak about a lot of variations of different things. And I think that attracts a lot of people. And a lot of people are doing that now. I'm actually happy
yeah,
about it. Bigfoot groups who were once upon a time just Bigfoot are now doing hauntings. And you know what? I think people learned that in ways from me. And I'm not trying to take credit from it. I'm happy they're doing it because it's information
absolutely.
being shared.
I wanted real quick to mention too Miguel over at Sasquatch Theory. He's a good man, and Jake out there, and all these guys out there are doing good work, and they're helping bring this to light out there. And again, what you just brought up, and that's what I want to do as well. There is a connection between the cryptids and the paranormal, and with UAPs and aliens, and all this stuff is somehow intertwined. And to just pick one thing and talk about it, it's impossible for me when I'm going to do it or doing it just right now. So I applaud you, Mike, for being one of the first guys to touch on it all. And Josh Turner over at Paranormal Roundtable does it. He talks about it all. So I just believe that this stuff is part of each other, and it needs to be discussed. And something is going on out there, man. There's just too much happening, and I feel like we're on the cusp of worldwide, the quote unquote find out about something. Something's coming up, and I hope I'm still here when it happens.
Yeah, me too. And I hope we win.
Yeah,
And so we can get to the bottom of it all in a good
right.
way, an intelligent way. A lot of people think that, some of our thoughts and ideas are negative, and we're truly not. There's too much diversity of pressing a divide into place to keep us separated, to keep us apart. It was the same thing, when they said, oh, stay 6 feet apart. And I'm not trying to bring up anything, that has nothing to do with a particular topic. But I think that was all put into place so we didn't talk to each other. They were controlling the condition of what they needed to do, because if they didn't get away with what they wanted to do, pharma would have died. Their investments would have died. But
Yeah.
because they were successful in their lies, and a lot of people were easy to manipulate, and they trusted government as strongly as they did, they became billionaires. Over 100
Hmm.
achieve that, including some of our people in Washington. So these are the reasons I stay back. I weigh evidences on of a lot of facts in a lot of different ways. A lot of people think America Disclosing Uncensored is actually like a political viewpoint. In fact, it's not. It's everything else, but can, but it does apply to all the conspiracy. So it doesn't bring us into the new world format of what we've been dealing with the last 10 years, but it goes back to, I'd say, at least the 70s, all the way back into ancient times of, and I love sharing that kind of stuff because you know what, for me, the more I can raise my education now, and I don't know why, it just fascinates me. School never fascinated me because I always had this thing in my mind. They're lying to me. I really had that suspicion because I went to the library and I would look in a book and see something, or I would look in I can't remember, National Geographic magazine. It wasn't to see the black girl's boobies. That wasn't it. I want to be clear there because a lot of white boys did that. They did. Don't be lying, guys. You all looked. Okay. And the truth was, you saw things like that. Now we're seeing it in the streets of America. It's
Yeah.
bizarre. But, I would go back into school and they would be teaching me something to where it made no sense upon what a book that validated where their education came from. It didn't even remotely match. And I
Right.
would sit there in boredom. I finally went to my father after he beat my ass for not wanting to be there. And he finally agreed to say, okay, you can work. I'll sign you out of school if that's what you want. You know what? He made one of the smartest kids on the earth into who I am. Doesn't
There
even
you
know it
go.
by just finally meeting the minds and having that, like you had with that discussion with your father, saying to dad, I'm an adult. This is what I saw. So it's a lot alike. We really are in ways that you wouldn't even perceive, but believe me, it's a factual truth. And anyway, we're at the end of our time, and I want to thank you and thank everybody else who stayed in. The crowd stayed strong through all this. Maybe you'll come on another night. We could do something on America Disclosing in of a different venue, or when you're ready. Let me do this for you, and I'll do it for anybody out there. If I'm having a show and you're ready to boot, I'll let you come in and you can do whatever it is to share your content and information out so people will know how to find you. And I'll give you the whole entire platform of what I have to be able to strengthen yourself.
Thank you, brother. That means a lot, and I really mean that. And
You know, as
I,
they say, every vote counts, and you can have mine.
thank you.
Not
I
a
mean,
problem. Not a problem. We got to do this to get to the bottom of it. And again, I wish you well. I do want to say that. I hope
thank you.
your dreams become something different, like you at the beach with a Mai Tide in your hand, or listening to Jimmy Buffett, you know, Paradise Burgers, or whatever them guys
Foo
sing, you
fight.
know. Pardon
Foo
me?
fight.
Yeah, yeah. But anyway, thank you everybody for joining in. Please like and share it on your pages. Let's make something with this story here and get it out for the world to see. Josh, thank you for stepping in, and everybody else. We greatly appreciate you, and you have a pleasant night, my friend.
You as well. Thank you, everybody.
All right, we'll talk again soon, I'm sure. Take care, everyone. Bye bye.
Bye.